Hello everyone. Welcome to another episode of INSA Podcast. Here on INSA Podcast, we strive to inspire everyone to choose the food that brings the good, as well as to dive into the nutrition and dietetics community to know more about it. My name is Jackie, and I'm your host for today. So, picture this. After a hectic day of classes, meetings, and assignment, leaving you with no time to eat, you go home tired and hungry, but there's no food waiting for you at home because you're living alone in a dorm away from home. Now, you want to order some food for delivery, but you can't because it's too expensive and you're out of budget. Alright, so some of you wouldn't need to imagine that because that's how some of your days are living now, right? I'm talking about you guys, the university students. So university is a fascinating time period. So for those that have not experienced it, they think of it like in the dramas, like you get to sleep in late, go for afternoon classes, plenty of free time to hang out with your friends, and a lot of handsome seniors and pretty juniors. Those who have left it might think of it as the last period of their freedom before they enter the society and start their 9-to-5 grind. And those who are currently in universities, they can't say anything because they're too tired from exams and assignments. Ask me how I know. Okay, anyways, back to the topic we have on hand today. Today, we are going to explore how university life has changed the eating habits of students and the problems that cause. So for many, university signifies not only an academic shift from secondary school up to tertiary, but also a period of lifestyle changes. With newfound dependence, increased financial ability, just to name a few of the changes. Who we are, what we're doing, and how we're living are all up for change and exploration, including the way we eat. So joining me today here is our guest dietitian, Ms. Hasanah, who will be sharing with us some of her experience back when she was a university student like me, and also giving us some tips and tricks to eat healthier in the changing university environment. So Ms. Hasanah, could you introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm Hasanah. I am a freelance dietitian. I have worked with numerous clients as a freelance dietitian. I not only do consultations, but I do health talks, brand collaborations, and much more. I'm also actually, fun fact, an IMU alumni. I was from the batch of DN 117, and I know you're secretly thinking, oh my gosh, you're so old. But I'm not that old. But yeah, I was also an IMU alumni.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much for joining us today, and I believe that you can give us and the listeners a lot of valuable experience. So maybe before we get into the actual problems, could you share with us a bit, go back down the memory track on how do you remember university life has changed the way you eat or anything?
Yeah, I think one of the things that you said in your opening about how, we see in movies or in TV shows that, university life is so carefree and so fun, and that's when you get to have fun with friends. I think it's a little bit over-glamorized.
Yeah, definitely.
In my opinion. But I think during university days, I was so busy. I think the hardest meal that I had to figure out was breakfast, because we had a lot of 8 a.m. classes.
Oh yeah, those
are... waking up early in the morning and then having to rush and go and find breakfast. So I would normally just stop by the G Mart and get a drink or something like that.
Yeah, just something easy to eat.
And then in between the classes, I'd go back and go look for buns or something like that, because it's so stressful to even think of something early in the morning. I'm just rushing for class at that point.
Yeah, it's definitely harder. Alright, so thank you very much. So in this episode, we'll discuss about some of the nutritional challenges of university students, and we will have 3 university students joining us to share the problems that they're facing and some of the strategies they had to cope. So hopefully it'll be applicable to some of you listeners out there. So we're going to take a short break and then we'll get straight into the first student. Alright, welcome back everyone. So now let's welcome our first student, Miss Chia Canning, aka the Operation Officer for the podcast, to share with us on how university has changed the way she eats. Unfortunately, due to her busy schedule, she couldn't be here with us today, so she has recorded a clip for us.
Hi, my name is Kianing, and I'm currently a year 3 student in IMU studying dietetics, and I'm also a student athlete playing dodgeball. For me, one of my problems is I'm not eating meals at regular times. Like some days, I will have my lunch at 4 p.m., which is quite late, and sometimes I will skip my meals, straight away not eating lunch as an example. So the main reason is because my schedule is too packed, so I don't have time to eat. Like some days, I will have my class from 9 a.m. until 12:45 p.m. and then few meetings in a row for assignments and events, and then more classes after that. So the only time I have to eat is after 4 p.m. Sometimes, when I have few works on my hand, eating feels less important due to all the work I have. When there's few things due in a short time, I tend to focus 100% of my attention on all my responsibilities first, and it will end up feeling eating is a waste of time when I could be working on something else. So one of the consequences I notice is that I tend to feel sleepy most of the time, and I tend to lose focus when I'm working on something. I will ignore this feeling until I'm really having a hard time and only eat when I really have to. So on the other side, it also affects my athletic ability. I will experience loss of muscle as I'm not eating enough, and it also affects my muscle strength and performance.
Okay, thank you very much, Kiani. Alright, so the problem that she had, not having enough time to eat because she's too busy with academic work and other activities, is likely something that's quite common among university students. Yeah. So based on a survey that we posted on our Inside Instagram page, around 38% of you guys said that you experience this very frequently, while another 38% of you said from time to time when asked how often you guys had this experience. So Ms. Hasanah, have you had a similar experience like this back in your day?
Yeah, I think as a university student, we're always trying to get to the next thing. Whether it's an extracurricular activity or it's a class or it's an assignment, we're always looking for something to do next. And sometimes while we're looking for the next thing, one of the things that we forget to do is eat.
Yeah.
Because what we put on our to-do list is things that we have to meet a deadline for. But eating isn't something that we think we need a deadline for, you know?
Yeah.
It's like breathing. We don't schedule time for breathing. So we take it for granted, actually, the little things in life. And it was quite common, not even just for myself, but also among my colleagues and my friends. That was what we struggled with as university students.
Yeah, so for me, myself, I've definitely also had my fair share of 4 p.m. lunches because sometimes there's really just nothing you can do. The schedule doesn't allow it. And for some of our listeners who has graciously shared their experience and opinion on this topic, so they told us that some of them couldn't have their meals in time because of busy classes and assignments. Some of them mentioned that the cafeteria is too packed so that they don't have place to eat. While some also mentioned, and I quote, during exam time, I feel like I need to keep studying, so taking time to eat is like wasting time. Yeah. So perhaps we can focus on the last point, which is actually a similar point that Kiani mentioned just now, where eating has become not so important when things get very busy like that. So Ms. Hasanah, maybe you can share with us some of your thoughts on this situation and maybe some of the potential negative consequences that can come if you don't eat on time and skip some of your meals in the long term.
Yeah. So I think one of the things is that, like I said, we take eating for granted because it's just something that's natural as part of our life. We just take it for granted because that's just something you have to do. And if I have time, I'll do it. If I don't, then I won't do it. But when you think of it, if you change your mindset and you think of it as something that's like, I need to fuel my body in order for me to do things better. What is the reason that I'm doing all these things on my to-do list? Is it because, I'm studying because I have to, because I want to? I'm doing dodgeball because I want to enjoy it. You have a lot of different reasons why you're doing things. So why not give a reason to eating besides I just have to eat because I want to eat? Give a reason to eating in a point that I have to eat to make sure that I have enough fuel to run throughout the day so that I can do better in my studies, I can focus better, so that I can perform better in dodgeball and so on.
Yeah.
So I would say, to list negative consequences, I think it's quite common. All of us already know, I think it's so common if we were to do a survey among university students, how many of you get gastric attacks and like stomach aches because, like the Creole in your stomach all the time because you're skipping meals. So again, if you just gave a little bit of your time or attention that you give to all of these fun activities, to your friends, to your phone, to everything, if you give that amount of attention or even 10% of that to just look at shifting that focus into the importance of eating, then you wouldn't really feel that eating is a waste of time. You'll find that it quantifies more because it's essentially the fuel that drives everything else, the base of the pyramid.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I think, as you mentioned, the change of mindset to something like eating is just a background task to something that could actually you put on your to-do list and to put priority on it is actually very important. And consequences, especially some of the very common ones like gastric problems, those they don't feel good. So So let's try not to do that and then hope we can prevent that. Alright, so now let us perhaps discuss some solutions to deal with this, like what we can do if really the situation doesn't allow it. So do you have any tips or solutions?
I think the most common solution, or even something that it's always said but we don't actually take it more seriously, is to plan ahead. If you could just take 10 minutes in the beginning of the day to plan ahead, like, okay, today this is how my classes are going to be. And let's say your class finishes at 12:45, it's impossible for you to go to the cafe and get food at that point of time because it's going to be full or the food's going to be gone and everything. So what can you do? Can you bring food from home? Can you essentially ask your friend to get you food beforehand? Can you order food beforehand? Plan ahead so that at least when the time comes, okay, I already have food. So because sometimes one of the reasons that you avoid eating like during lunchtime is because you feel like it's a hassle to go and get the food. So removing obstacles by planning ahead, that's a great way for you to start with, I think secondly is always, as you plan ahead, to always make sure that you schedule time to eat. It doesn't have to be like, just because everybody eats lunch from 1 to 2 does not mean you have to eat lunch from 1 to 2. So when you plan ahead, you can already know, okay, my schedule is free between 11:30 to 12:30, or my schedule is free between 1:45 to 2:45. With that, you can also mentally prepare yourself, okay, this is when I need to have snacks in my bag. This is when I need to make sure I already have lunch ahead of time, and so on. So you can schedule your eating timings to timings that work best for you, rather than you are trying to fit in with like the conventional timings that everybody has breakfast at 8, everybody has lunch at 12, everybody has dinner at 6. It's not going to work. So work around your own schedule and find a way that it fits into your schedule.
Yeah, I think for me personally, that planning ahead part really is what I do, because sometimes I think one that really struck me is that don't just follow. It's like everyone eats breakfast at 8 p.m., lunch at 8 a.m. and lunch at 12 p.m. like that. So I think just not following that, and then see when you are free, and then trying to get your meals on time, and perhaps preparing some snacks also if the time really doesn't allow it, would be really some of the ways that personally I've been coping. So thank you very much for those tips, and I hope listeners, you guys have jotted down some of them to help yourself. So for another idea that I've heard of, especially when linking back to the eating is not the important one of the ways that I've heard people deal with it is that they can ask friends to bug you to eat with you and force you to eat. So in a sense, eating becomes more enjoyable because it's not just eating, you're also socializing with your friends and then trying to get your friends to help out also.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think, being in your university, this is the time that you're surrounded with friends all the time. So why not, piggyback and together make sure that each of you are eating. I think even until this age, that's what my friends and I do. Sometimes we are so busy in our day that we forget to eat, right? So when you have a friend that tags along with you and so on, you kind of monitor each other, because when you're monitoring yourself, you forget. But when you're monitoring someone you care about, you be like, hey, why haven't you eaten? Have you taken something? Why not take a snack? And so on. So that's a great way to start.
Yep, so getting a friend to remind you is also one of the ways. Alright, so thank you very much for Kianing for sharing her experience, and hope you guys have got something from that. And then we'll take a short break and be back for the next student and a different aspect of university life. Hi everyone, welcome back. So now let us invite our second university students over here to share with us about how entering university has changed her eating habits and the problems she's currently facing. Let's welcome Miss Ho Ying-Yuan.
Hey everyone, I'm Ying-Yuan, and what an honor to be here today. I'm currently a third-year dietetics student in IMU.
Okay, hi Ying-Yuan. So could you share with us what specific changes have happened since you entered university?
So, well, this begins from the day I moved out from my house to live in a dorm near the campus. Because I am now completely on my own, so no one's going to cook a meal or wait for me to eat when I go back home. So sometimes you tend to ponder a lot about what to eat every day. So yeah, which is what today's episode is about.
Yeah, that does sound like a really big change in your lifestyle. So could you tell us a bit on how it changed the way you eat?
Yeah, so the main difference is now I'm independent to eat however I like. So that means I would often give in to my cravings, like eating something less healthier but tastier. So some examples would be fried foods, milk tea, instant foods and instant noodles. And compared to staying at home, my family would often stop me from my cravings or like stress eating with the unrequested comments like, why are you eating that? You're already so fat.
Yeah, I could really relate to that lah, because sometimes when you stay at home, your parents might say, hey, you drink a lot of Coke already. Yesterday you just eat ice cream. Why you eat like that? So yeah, that is a problem lah. So are there any other problems that you're facing now?
Yeah, another problem that I'm facing is like I'm less able to cook with healthy ingredients since it's hard to stock up with the ingredients, and this is especially problematic because I cook only for myself and the fresh ingredients are usually pre-packaged in like large portions, so I can only buy a few types. So the worst part is like keeping track of the ingredients I bought because I only cook a bit at a time. And they spoil so quickly, like there is few times I suddenly realize like, my garlic is going to spoil. Then I have to immediately cook it, sakit kepala.
Yeah, the struggle is real though. Like when you want to use a certain ingredients that you know it's in your fridge, but then when you take it out, it's like, oh no, it expired 2 months ago.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so does it cause any problems for you?
Yeah, it can really cause anxiety sometimes. Like, my last problem is like kind of similar to what Kianing has said earlier. Like I would skip some of my meals and when I'm busy, or I'm lazy to eat. And the difference is that usually when I am at home, my parents would definitely lecture me if I skip a meal. Like, girl, why you don't eat? You like gastric or you anorexia? But now now it's like no one is here telling me that anymore. So overall, I have been eating less healthier compared to when I'm at home.
Yeah, so actually some of our listeners also share your experience, especially about like having the freedom to eat but end up making like unhealthy food choices and all that. But interestingly, one of our listeners actually had the opposite experience where dorm living actually brought her positive change. Like she mentioned that her meal timings have actually improved, became more consistent now because she can cook immediately after her class ends and she doesn't have to wait for like her family in order to wait for everyone to eat together like that. And she also said that the quality of the food she's eating is actually better now because she's able to cook for herself. So she can say like use less salt, use less oil to cook. So like you don't have to accommodate for others. And then she can't easily eat like back when she's at hometown, she would regularly eat like laksa, deep fried kueh, all those unhealthier foods. So now that she's in a dorm, she can't actually eat those that regularly anymore lah. So perhaps some of our listeners would more resonate with that lah. So maybe Miss Hasanah, do you have any similar experience like living on yourself?
I think both points are valid. I think there are some pros and cons to living alone, and there are some pros and cons of living with family. I would say if you're a person that loves to cook, living alone is going to be so much more fun in a way also for some people because you get to do like what the listener said, you have control over everything they eat. Like for me at home, my brothers particularly don't really eat seafood and I'm a seafood lover. They don't eat certain types of vegetables, so anything I cook at home has to be accommodating to everybody's food preferences, which is a bit annoying. But living alone, then I can cook seafood every single day if I wanted to, that kind of thing. But then again, I also understand from your point of view saying that sometimes, given that I'm alone, I also feel like I'm a bit lazy to cook because I'm cooking for myself, and it's a bit sad because I find cooking as something that's like homey and something with the family, something that I enjoy being around a group of people. So when I have to cook for myself, it makes me feel like, what mom? It's just for me, it's a meal for one. But I have to do it because I have to eat anyways.
Yeah.
So again, there's some pros and cons to both sides, I think.
Yeah, okay. So now that we have seen some of the different ways of how living in a dorm can change the way university students eat, so perhaps we can move on to some of the solutions to help Yingyuan to eat healthier in this situation. So actually one of our listeners mentioned regarding the problem of stocking like fresh healthy ingredients, especially vegetables, is that she suggested to stock up more on root vegetables which generally last longer and can be kept longer around. So Hasanah, do you think it's a viable option or do you have any other suggestions?
Yeah, I think that's a great, point to bring up. I actually had a discussion with one of my clients this past week, talking about this because she was saying I want to include more vegetables, but when I buy my spinach, then the spinach goes bad after 2 days. And sometimes I don't have time to cook, so I buy it and then it goes bad, or I buy it and it doesn't last throughout the week. It's like a whole chicken and egg kind of situation, But at the end of the day, what we kind of came up with at the end of the consultation was, what we planned together is that for the first 2 days of the week, assuming that it's a 5-day week, right? So for the first 2 days, we cook things that are like more green leafy vegetables, because those can probably only last you in the fridge the first 2 days.
Yeah.
So whatever things that you like, then those could be it. And then maybe in midweek could be things that last longer, things like cabbage last longer, things like tomatoes last longer, those kind of things. And for me personally, and something that I apply to myself is that I meal prep actually ahead of time. So from Monday to Wednesday is the days that I meal prep ahead of time. So I cook everything beforehand, and I bring to work for me now. But as a student, then bring to uni then. But Thursday and Friday is the day that I allow myself to eat out or order out and so on. So it kind of gives me a balance, because I still get to enjoy all the things that I like from Grab food, from Food Panda and stuff like that. But it also gives me the fulfillment of cooking and having food that are also home cooked. Because I think sometimes when you buy things, you also kind of compromise on like certain things, like, oh, they only have this, then I just order this now, because they don't have it in the best way that I want it. But when you're cooking at home, you kind of can tailor it to how you want it, less onions, more garlic, and those kind of things, So essentially, I would say, to go back to tips, you could work your vegetables around in a way that if it's a 5-day week, if you're a person that cooks every single day, look at vegetables. The first 2 days could be vegetables that perish easily. Then the next few days could be going towards vegetables that can last longer. A second tip was like, if you meal prep, then maybe you could even give yourself I think it's tiring to meal prep a lot in advance, especially if, let's say, you have 3 meals a week, right? If it's 5 days, then you're prepping 15 meals. That's a lot, personally. So that's why I give myself allowance. Monday to Wednesday is when I actually have my meal prep, and Thursday and Friday is when I eat out. And when I do eat out, I also do this thing where I checklist in my brain, and this is also what I tell my clients when you eat. I have this mental checklist that I make sure that when I eat, there has to be a carb, there has to be a protein, and there has to be a fiber, and there has to be a healthy fat. So whether it is your, asam laksa, or it is your nasi lemak or something like that, sometimes we feel guilty because we are ordering things, because we don't know, is it healthy, is it, sometimes there's so many options on Grab, how do I choose and stuff like that. So one is to give in to your cravings, but let's say, I don't know, what is people's common craving? Let's say kyochon, right? Kyochon is a thing. Is it still a thing now? I don't know. I'm a millennial. So anyways, let's say kyochon is a thing. Kyochon is chicken, right? So that's protein. So how could I make it up to my checklist? So I will make sure that I have some rice with it. So that's carbs, that's protein. So can I order some form of vegetables? If I can't find vegetables from kitchen, can I look through my fridge? Is there some fruits that I can have as my fiber component there? And then if there's any healthy fats that I can include, like some nuts or something like that, that's great. But if I don't, then I try to minimize any fried elements that I can when I eat. So that's essentially how I go about it when I was staying alone. Just finding plans that work best with my personality. People that love to cook, they can cook every single day. People that don't love to cook, they probably work better. I have clients that work better with me in just finding ways that we literally, our consultation is going through Grab Food and Food Panda together and just going through options. And she's like, okay, I want to order sushi king. How do I make sushi king applicable for me? So we'll go through it together and then see, okay, this is what you can order from Sushi King, so that it's fulfilling, but also healthy and also makes you happy. So both sides can win.
Yeah, I think the latter part where even though you're eating ostensibly unhealthy food, but trying to find ways to make it healthier, make it less unhealthy, is also quite an interesting idea, because sometimes I think, as you mentioned just now, we get the idea of this food is bad, so whenever we eat it, we feel guilty. It's why are we eating this? But I think a change of mindset, so instead of this food is bad, into let's try to make this bad food into something better for us. Yeah, I think that's a very interesting thing that I've learned. Alright, so that's all for this part when discussing issues about eating behaviors that arises from living in a dorm. So hope you guys have learned something, and hope that Miss Ying Yuan had gotten some tips to improve the way she eats. Alright, so we'll see you guys in the next part after this short break. Okay, welcome back everyone. So now let's dive into the final topic for today. And for this part, I'll be joined by my fellow co-host for Insta Podcast, Mr. Lee Kun Ming.
Hello, hi everyone, yo, what's up everyone? So my name is Lee Kun Ming. I'm actually also a third year student, dietetics, studying at IMU. So actually, by being here, do I actually get paid on being on this episode?
Unfortunately no, but the next issue we'll be discussing is all about money, which is the budget problem faced by university students. So Kunming, did you have any experience where money was a factor that influenced your eating behaviors and potentially affected the nutrition value of the meals that you're eating?
Yeah, actually I have one, I just remembered. So it's like, there was one time I went into a supermarket, and then into the supermarket, for some reason I was like, you know what, today I'm gonna eat healthy. I'm gonna eat healthy, like nutritious stuff. So I went into the aisle where they sell like the biscuits and then the nuts, granolas and all that stuff. So I just went through like, okay, this one looks healthy, maybe I'll just take this one up. So I took it, I saw it, I was looking, the contents, everything looks good, the price and all, the contents they write the contents like, it's good. Then I looked at the price, and then I put it back. so you might be wondering like, well, why did you put it back? Well, you know how much that thing costs? That granola bar cost 15 ringgit. 15! So the moment I saw, I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna settle on some tam tam and mimis. That will absolutely, make my appetite better. Yeah, that's one of the more, I would say, recent memories that I have regarding to like eating healthily on a budget.
Yeah, that's very interesting and I think quite relatable to most of us because sometimes healthy foods do command a bit of a premium. So Miss Hasanah, do you have any memories about this?
I think being a student, budget is like small and you get allowance for your parents, so you really have to be like, okay, and like sometimes you want to go out with friends, right? So like we plan, okay, Fridays today we go out for lunch, so I gotta make sure that from Mondays to Thursdays I eat like well enough that I can afford my Friday lunches.
Budgeting for the week.
Yeah.
But that's literally how I budget around it. But I understand the whole, and how do I put it? I understand the whole being nutritious and healthy can be expensive. But
yes.
I think now that I'm learning more about things and so on, I think that's not really true. Being Malaysian, it's possible for you to eat healthy without it actually being expensive, and I think that's a privilege that Malaysians have due to an abundance of certain things that we have here locally.
That's a very interesting thing that perhaps we can explore. So, but we also have a comment from a listener who mentioned that the way that budget would affect her is that sometimes she would buy unhealthy snacks to eat because sometimes that's the cheapest thing that she has there. It's like those biscuits, Oreos and those kind of things. They're the cheapest snacks there.
I understand that so much.
Okay, but I have a question for you.
Yeah.
If you were to eat an Oreo or like, I don't know, your Tam Tam or Mimis and all of that, right? How long is that going to keep you full?
Oh my god, how is gonna keep me full? If I were to eat like a whole packet, I would say quite full.
Okay, but how long? I know at that point of time you're going to be quite full, but for how long?
How long? Usually, because I do have like a habit of eating like those Oreos and stuff. So usually I would say it's around like 2 to 3 hours.
Exactly.
And then after that, you get hungry again.
So let's say if like that whole piece of Oreo is like already expensive, so you'll probably be buying small Oreos quite frequently.
Yeah.
If you actually added up all the amount of Tam Tams and Mimis that you buy throughout the day, it probably could have gotten you like nasi campur or like some fan from the cafeteria, which is like going to cost you 8-9 ringgit.
Oh yeah. Yeah. But isn't it like the fun of eating the biscuits makes it like, yes, I can eat something. that makes me happy.
I'm not saying you can't eat the biscuits.
Yeah.
I'm just saying your justification that you're eating the biscuits because it's cheaper than eating rice and stuff like that is you can still eat the rice, and then if you feel like you want a dessert, then you can do that. But like, you don't have to sacrifice eating all the stuff because it's like, like the nasi campur is 8 ringgit, 9 ringgit. My tam tam is like only 2 ringgit or 3 ringgit. But I eat 3 tam tams, which cost also 8 to 9 ringgit.
So it's essentially just the same, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
So that's actually an interesting idea that sometimes if you spend a little to get like those unhealthy snacks, but then you don't actually feel full eating them, so you end up like the total amount for you to get full is actually similar to if you had just eat a main meal like that. So Kunming, perhaps you could share a bit on some tips that you have to eat on a budget. You have experienced yourself?
Yes, thank you for the segment. So actually, we do have a podcast episode specifically on that topic, healthy eating on a budget. So if any of the listeners are interested, you can stay tuned for the next episode where we'll be sharing some life hacks extending your ringgit. By the way, I'm the podcast host, so please have a look. Thanks, bye.
Alright, so be sure to check out our next episode on that topic if you're interested on how to keep your budget low. And also check out our previous episodes on Insta Podcast where we have covered topics such as artificial sweeteners, gut health, and others. And that's all for this episode. So to briefly recap, we have covered a few problems that university students are facing in regards to their eating behaviors, busy schedules causing like meal skipping and irregular meal time, and some ways to deal with that. We also went through how living in a dorm changed the way some university students will eat and some ways to eat healthier in that environment. And lastly, we also touched a bit on the budget problems. And then if you're interested in that for the solutions, you can check out the next episode.
Yeah, that's where I will be hosting that episode. So do come around and check out our episode.
Yep, okay. So after all that, we have arrived at the end of this episode. So thank you very much, Miss Hasanah, for finding time to join this podcast, even though you are very busy. Yeah, so maybe before you go, do you have any last words for today?
Enjoy university life, but don't forget to eat well and enjoy the food that you eat as well. Be a foodie.
Okay, yep. As Miss Hasanah said, be a foodie. Alright. So before we sign off, do check us out on our social media. The details are attached below. And thank you very much for tuning into this episode. And we'll see you on the next episode. This is the Insta Podcast, inspiring everyone to choose the food that brings the good. Bye bye.
Bye bye.